We've talked about aerobic respiration. Now I want to talk about what happens if oxygen isn't present, and that's what anaerobic respiration is. So anaerobic respiration is what happens if oxygen is not present. In fermentation, this is what happens. So the anaerobic respiration will be the process of making ATP without oxygen. Glycolysis is used universally by organisms to make ATP. In the absence of oxygen, glycolysis will be followed by fermentation, rather than being followed by the Krebs cycle or the electron transport chain. In fermentation, we use one glucose molecule to make 2 ATP molecules. This is a really small output of ATP compared to aerobic cellular respiration. And the problem is that for glycolysis to continue, we need to recycle NADH back into NAD+. So after glycolysis, the products that we talked about is that we have 2 molecules of ATP, 2 NADH, and then we would also have 2 pyruvic acid at the end of glycolysis. So the purpose of fermentation is to recycle the NADH to NAD+. This allows glycolysis to continue so that there's something to accept the energy from the high energy electrons, and this allows then ATP to continue to be made. The reason why this isn't really ideal is because it's not producing very much ATP and because it's hard to keep up with the demand by recycling NADH to NAD+. There are 2 types of fermentation. There's alcoholic fermentation, which will produce ethanol and CO2, and there's lactic acid fermentation, which will produce lactic acid. Alcoholic fermentation, the equation for this is pyruvic acid plus NADH will yield ethyl alcohol plus CO2, or carbon dioxide, plus NAD+. This is performed by yeast to recycle NADH to NAD+. This is how you could make bread rise. This is also used in making alcohol. This is something that you would want to be released because you would not want this because this would be toxic to the cells. For lactic acid fermentation, the equation for this is pyruvic acid plus NADH, and then it yields lactic acid plus NAD+. This is performed by lots of different types of cells and organisms, like muscle cells, bacterial cells. It occurs in muscles after rapid exercise. This can be used to make sour cream, yogurt, buttermilk, sauerkraut, but this is going to be used for a variety of different processes. Lactic acid fermentation occurs when there's decreased oxygen and strenuous activities in our muscles, and so lactic acid in muscles can be converted back to pyruvate when it gets carried back to your liver. Then it can be used for cell respiration. Whenever we look at ATP and exercise, ATP is going to be used for quick energy, and this can last for a few seconds. Afterwards, lactic acid fermentation is going to kick in, and it can supply ATP for about 90 seconds. After that point, though, then you'll need several minutes of oxygen to recover. Now, athletes that are in top form maybe produce less lactic acid and are better at converting this into ATP, but this is a process, this quick energy process will be typically an anaerobic process. Whenever you're looking at long-term energy, like runners that are running long distances and need to exercise longer than 90 seconds will need aerobic cellular respiration to generate ATP. There will be glycogen stores, so this is a form of glucose, just the storage form, and that'll last about 15 to 20 minutes, and then after that point, the body will start to break down other molecules such as fats in order to supply some of the energy that is needed for the cell to survive.